Snapchat, TikTok, LinkedIn, all of the different social media applications typically do allow for in-app advertising. And there are a lot of different ways to reach people within the app through different means of storytelling. There's also search advertising, and these are targeted ads to people who are online and are demonstrating interest specifically through their online behavior. So think third-party search engines like Google. And whenever you see a banner ad that pops up when you search for something or anything like that's optimized for what's called SEO, that would be search engine optimization and advertising. There's also programmatic display advertising. These are ads that are placed on a variety of websites that target the viewers of those specific websites. So think whenever you're on a news site or you're on an online sports site and you see an ad that might even be totally unrelated pop up in the background, that's what we're talking about when we speak to programmatic display. And finally, the increasingly popular form of advertising that's called connected TV, which are generally video ads. And they're placed on streaming platforms that target viewers who are actively watching or streaming something. And for those who are active subscribers of all of the innumerable streaming softwares that are out there, if you see now ads that are especially political on Amazon Prime, Hulu, Peacock, in your 30-second intermission of episodes of Love Island, you see a political ad that was run through a connected TV ad.
Awesome. I love it. You're in the drama of who stole whose boyfriend, and then all of a sudden it's who you should be voting for town council.
Everyone needs a guilty pleasure, man.
Yeah, well, I love it. And basically it feels like digital means anywhere that campaigns might slide into your feeds, your searches, your sites, or your streams, basically showing up where modern, voters are spending all of their time. We're kind of like the world's most persistent X, but with better graphics.
That's right. And dare I say, even slide into your DMs, which is something that is starting to happen, and I think to the chagrin of the kids out there.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about which channels our candidates should be using. I know that we had a lot of questions. We, of course, have this new course that is focused on meta advertising. But Jeffrey, who I know is on the call, had submitted some questions ahead of time asking about Google Ads and YouTube ads, some of the things that you covered here.
Yeah.
So please tell us a little bit about the different channels that our candidates should use and sort of the differences between them.
Yeah, I think that in many ways, the answer really does depend on who you're trying to reach, also the size of your campaign and the budget. And the sometimes underrated and undervalued piece of this is also who is helping you, or how much knowledge and training do you have, or resources like the new course that was just launched to help you navigate the space. Because advertising online can be traditionally challenging. And in fact, the landscape is ever evolving in terms of what you need to do, not just to have success, but to even get set up. And so typically, and the reason we're going to really dive most deeply into social media advertising is it's because it is the type of online digital advertising that requires the least amount of training and support for a first-time candidate to get up from start to finish. It allows for unique personal engagement opportunities directly with the constituents. Again, because it's social media, you can engage socially with people who are engaging with you in a way that is unique from some of the other maybe more passive platforms that are out there. And you do tend to target folks who are generally more highly engaged. These other platforms, I think there's a place for them, especially in larger campaigns and with the dedicated support of people or vendors who can help you walk through some of these platforms. They do intend to require more support just to get started. And I often will say, hey, if there's extra room in the budget, or if the campaign is a much larger campaign, or if I even have a more dedicated support staff, I might look into placing something like a Google search ad or programmatic display advertising. I think for the purpose of this call, knowing some of the candidates that are on and knowing the candidates that we most frequently work with, it makes the most sense to start with social media advertising. And I think over the course of our run, really diving more deeply into the space to support people, we're eager to hear from our candidates on what the next frontiers are, because we certainly can help. It just is a question of how do we sort of put as many candidates as possible in places to succeed. And so social media advertising is the obvious candidate to start with, but it's certainly not the end game.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing here is that bigger campaigns tend to play in all of these channels,
Yeah.
but smaller campaigns tend to start by just picking one where they can make a really sizable impact. And that tends to be social media because it has the farthest reach and it can also kind of be the easiest with the lowest bar to entry. Like doing connected TV, for example, tends to be a little bit more expensive because it's more similar to the pricing model of doing actual television commercials, right?
Yeah, and I think the thing that for those who are sort of debating and deliberating on which platform is most effective for you, it's also think about the platforms that you most frequently engage or are moved to act based on what you see in the wild. Because every person who's listening to this call or who like Rob, you and I for sure have engaged with different social media ads across all of these different platforms. And I'd be willing to bet that the ones where we are most engaged with and are most frequently engaging outside of the concept of advertising is social media. It gives you an opportunity to engage directly with the person you are targeting, frequently to retarget them, but also direct them towards a place that they already happen to be. Whereas if they're, searching on ESPN and they see a banner ad for a city council candidate, you might be getting a lot of views, but it might be a little bit more difficult to measure the success of the ad and drive people to your website if they're just trying to watch a baseball game or something.
Nice. So with that in mind, the idea that social media is sort of the one size fits all that all campaigns should be doing, and kind of the democracy with training wheels version for a lot of first time campaigners. How do you run a social media ad campaign without losing your mind?
Yeah, it's there are layers to the game for sure. And I would say the very, very first thing, if anyone wanted to get started on this tonight, the very first thing you need, let's assume we're going to start with Facebook, which is generally where most people tend to be. And if not on Facebook, Instagram is their companion platform because they're all within the Meta network. Check to see and make sure you actually have a Facebook page. And when we say Facebook page, we don't mean your personal account. Every campaign needs a public facing Facebook profile in which they can engage with constituents and also register to get compliant with their ad standards. So these are public pages, profiles that are specific to your campaign rather than your personal account. For example, if I have Jared Alper has his private Facebook page, there might also be a Jared Alper for city council in the event he was to run for office. And before you even get started with advertising, I encourage folks to really build and show signs of life into these pages. Populate them with information about your campaign, connect them to your website. And if you don't have a website, look no further than goodparty.org, where we can help you get set up with not just a functioning and effective website, but also one that will check off the compliance boxes that are coming later in the presentation. Fill out your bio, add some pictures, and make some introductory posts that you can share with close friends and family, encouraging them to like and share your page. And that way, you're not starting from sort of base camp zero when you're trying to build out this advertising campaign. You already have some people who are engaging with you, and engagement breeds further engagement. The next piece of the process is a little bit of a bear, and we've taken already some steps to try and make this as painless as possible, but it is getting verified to run these individual ads. And that requires the individual identity verification of the person who wants to run these ads. There's a whole process. And for those people who are working and are pro candidates at goodparty.org already, we'll help you get set up with the verification process. But the reason this process exists is largely to prevent bots or foreign actors from using the platform to influence American elections, which I wouldn't say our track record historically as a country has been perfect on. To do that, you have to submit your driver's license and go through this whole flow. And in most campaigns, in most small campaigns especially, it's actually the candidate themselves who gets verified. So all you have to do is submit your driver's license and follow these steps. You'll hear back from Meta. They'll generally send a physical hard email or hard letter to your home with a code. You input the code and then you'll get verified. And then from there, you can begin the process of creating a campaign. And that requires a website, some advertising. If you have an EIN or an email, that generally helps to streamline the process. You'll be able to produce a disclaimer, and then you can get off to the races by actually producing advertising collateral.
Excellent. So just again, repeating back, it kind of seems like it's the same basic rules as dating apps where you prove you're real and then put your best face forward and see through the metrics who's swiping right. But really, the 4 steps here are making that page, and not just for your personal selfies, a real actual campaign page with a bio, pics, a couple of posts. You get verified, with proof that you're human. You build the ads, the videos, the graphics, etc., and then you just monitor to see who you're reaching and how effective it is.
Right. I mean, once you get the sort of startup out of the way, then you can go into the Facebook's native ad platform that's actually fairly intuitive to figure out. And you can either do things called post boostings, which is a very simple form of advertising. If anyone on this call who has a public facing Facebook page and has done all of the verification steps, you can take any post. You might say, post, hi, it's nice outside. I certainly wouldn't encourage anyone to post these particular posts, but as an example, you could post, it's a great day to be alive, and then hit boost post and say, I'm going to spend 20 bucks on that. And it'll get shown to people who are engaging on Facebook in your native, area or your local area. It's a very simple way of just pushing yourself out and basically taking your post, imagine a deck of cards, and going from the bottom of the deck to the top of the deck and then distributing it. There are also more sophisticated ads that, again, are not particularly complicated once you sort of get a feel for it. And we will help you every step of the way to get a feel for it. But in the crux of it really is you take whatever video or graphic or social media copy, the actual language that you want to advertise. You load it up into their native ad platform in Facebook. You can select your audience. You can do that a variety of ways, which we can talk about. It's either through their native platform, targeting people based on geography, or even through the voter file that we have access to. And then you decide on the channel. Do you want to throw these advertisings into reels, stories, videos, on Instagram? Any of those options are pretty quickly and easily available to you. And then the most important thing once you do that, though, is to monitor it. It's important to not just monitor, but also set a goal. Are you trying to drive people to your website? Are you trying to get people to like or engage with your posts or share your page? All of these things are options on the platform, and it's just important to know exactly what it is that you're trying to get out of the process, and then check in and measure. I mean, if you're putting 10 bucks in, you might not expect, hundreds of thousands of people to get flocked to your Facebook page, but you do want to see more than just a handful. Versus if you want to get people to thumbs up your posts, you want to make sure your posts are being engaged with. And so the best way to do that is to just be engaged, to check for all these different measurements that are in the platform, and to be on top of it and make sure that what you're doing is yielding results.
So I have a couple of questions that are coming in both from Circle and also from the Zoom chat here. Shauna in Zoom says, how do I know if I've been successful at getting verified at Facebook?
It's a great question. And what you can do on your personal or on your public facing Facebook page is you can go to settings. And if you follow this series of steps that gets you to where you need to be authorized to run social issue or electoral political ads, you'll see basically a checklist. And that checklist will show exactly where you are in each of these steps. But you'll also know if your identity is confirmed generally as soon as you input the code into Facebook that they'll mail you. And once you have that, it's almost a certainty that you're going to be locked and loaded. What we do when we try and help candidates is we actually send them a step-by-step guide that Rob and your team have been working really hard to develop an even more in-depth guide to getting set up. Both places will send you to the destination of how do I check to see where I am in the process of getting verified. And the thing I would say is it's frustration inducing. We always tell candidates, take a breath. Don't get frustrated or don't take it personally if you're running into challenges. It's a hard thing that stumps a whole lot of seasoned political people, especially because this process tends to change kind of on a dime without warning. And so what we do is try and make what has historically been a really painful challenge for candidates and even for political people as easy as possible by staying on top of it and then updating our guidelines as quickly as we can.
Excellent. So another question, this one comes from Tracy Saunders in Circle. Tracy asked, what is the best bang for my very few bucks? Is it to go to TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, And should I be focusing on video or still images with the advertising that I'm doing? And I know that our training and what we've said so far, those meta platforms are probably the best place to start from. So I want to focus in on that question of video or still. Where do you think the sort of standard is, Jared?
I tend to see and believe that video is the higher performer of the two. The caveat is you want the video to be high quality, and I think of a higher quality than a photo. And so that does not mean you need to hire a professional videographer with a really high-end camera, but a really wobbly video that's shot on your phone might not perform particularly well because it's tough for people at home to watch. I imagine most of us have seen a video on Facebook where you almost get dizzy watching the thing because you can tell that before the production wasn't exactly pristine. And a simple way to solve that is just get whether it's a selfie stick or a little tripod, something to stabilize your phone. They cost like 10, $15 on Amazon. You can buy it, mount your phone on one of them, and then shoot a quick video, and you'll be astonished at how much of a higher quality piece of collateral it will be.
Yeah, in the course that we just published, we have a whole section on creative for these types of ads. And we have some tips for short form video because short form video is really thought of as the king. And by that, we mean 15 to 30 second, at most 60-second videos. And everything that Jared said is dead on. I think adding captions, because you think about that scrolling behavior, a lot of people won't have the sound on as they're scrolling through. Having captions on your videos is helpful. Making good eye contact tends to draw people in. Good lighting and sound, like Jared was saying, and I think being authentic, being real over being polished. I do a lot of advertising for our community and for the trainings that we put together. And usually I'm shooting off the cuff. I have a rough sort of bullet point script of what I want to get across. But the ums and the ahs, the way that I talk is the way that I talk. And it tends to perform pretty well. And I think if we were clearly reading off of a script, our ads would not perform as well. So real over polished is definitely a piece of advice that I have on these. Any other thoughts on the sort of creative best practices, Jared?
I think the other thing is sort of punchy copy, and our AI happens to be very good at writing, eye-grabbing social media copy. But every video, every still image tends to have some degree of words and language that accompany it that can be tested as you go. But you want to catch people's attention. You want to speak in sort of casual, short, succinct, eye-grabbing phrases. And the thing that I oftentimes see candidates who are especially running their earliest ads, they write a lot. It's paragraphs upon paragraphs, and what you forget is that most of those writings won't even be seen because most people are looking on their phone. The words get cut off. So generally short, sweet, and try to think from the perspective of somebody who is maybe not aware of you and seeing it for the first time. Try to empathize and figure out what's going to grab their attention and be punchy in the way you speak.
So I have another question this time from Kobe in Circle. Kobe has been trying to get through the meta verification process for some time, and like a lot of people, is bumping into some challenges with it. He said that they didn't accept his picture ID on the first time, and now they're not letting him scan it again. Instead, they give him the option to send a notarized document, which he has tried to submit and is having a little bit of a back and forth with the folks. And his question is there any type of customer support that he can reach out to at Meta to expedite or help him to kind of get through some of these troubleshooting pieces? Any advice for somebody who's bumping into friction, as I know you've certainly bumped into in your time?
Yeah, they have a team at Meta. I don't know why they don't advertise it as publicly as they do, probably because they know that they're going to get flooded with requests, which is the politics and local government team. And their whole role is to help people get unblocked in using Meta advertising, especially for local elected officials. I think the best way to get in touch with them, though, is to go through their traditional support flow and just do what you can to be sending emails, following up, creating tickets. Generally, unfortunately, it is an enormous company. The loudest voice tends to be the one that grabs the most attention. And you will be surprised, unfortunately, because of how large of a company it is and how frequently people run into issues, how unsurprised they are by the frequent blockers. This is all known to them and to their team, and we're all sort of beholden to their standards. So I would say to you, Kobe, don't give up. Keep trying to crank it and really lean into their support service. And I think what you'll find, if this happened to me for sure, is eventually you get directed to the right people who can take on your ticket and reward the persistence.
Another question from Kobe. Are there special verification processes to run ads with other platforms such as Google Ads and YouTube, and how do they compare in complexity to the Meta process?
Generally, not as complex, but there are still verification standards. I don't believe that you need to get notarized or anything like that to get set up with Google, but you do need to go through a verification step, verify your identity, confirm the specific intent, and run a disclaimer if you're doing political advertising. And that generally is still a little bit of a process.
Excellent. I'm looking through our list of questions here, and I know that we have answered a lot of these sort of in the natural flow. So just doing a little hunt and peck here. What is the best way to ensure that the creative on an ad that I made won't be rejected by Facebook? What are some of the guidelines to keep creative within?
It's a good question. I've never really found that they are really trying to overly censor or reject creative. Typically, what you'll find more often than not is your creative gets approved but doesn't perform particularly well. And the reason for that will almost certainly be that there are, a lot of like scrunched words in the copy, or the actual, image is really pixelated and doesn't look clean. I think that they do look into to approve advertising as it's going through. And so if you're doing things that are very obviously against the standards of their platform, or if you aren't approved to run political ads, I think the reason that ads on Meta get rejected far and away more frequently than not is because they aren't going through the disclaimer process, or they don't check the right boxes, which is to say these are social or electoral ads. And then they're a hard pass if you're doing electoral advocacy. But sometimes there are also problems, like if you're trying to um, it's less to do with your specific ad copy and more of it violates their standards, which tend to be things that are difficult lines to cross, like incitement or any of the sort of protected speech standards.
Mhm. This is an interesting question from Muriel in the chat. Can you use community engagement questions or polls, or are they considered ads anyway?
Say that one more time.
So I'm clicking answer live on this one. Can you use community engagement questions or polls, or are they considered ads anyways? So actually,
Yeah,
can you run a poll as an ad?
you can run a that's a good question. Running a poll on its own is certainly not an advertisement, though you can run a poll and boost it, and then that would be, pushing your poll out into the universe. I don't believe you can actually run though through like their advertising suite, run a poll based advertisement. I don't think that that's something that they offer.
This question from Trey Hicks. I have a personal account with over 4,000 followers that I've always used in Facebook, and I'm Meta verified. Do I still need to create another account to be able to run political ads?
No, if you should not need to create a separate page if you've already got a public page. You'll just need to go through the verification process specifically for electoral and political ads.
Great. Well, I'm going to take a little break from pulling questions. Please keep these questions coming. Submit these in the Q&A box. I want to go ahead and introduce Tevin Bell from our product team, who's going to jump into the product demo and show you some of the ways that our tools can be used to help you run digital ads as well. And then we'll come back to another round of Q&A. But Tevin, why don't you introduce yourself and walk us through what you have from the lab?
Hey everyone, I'm Tevin. I'm one of our product managers over here at goodparty.org. And I've got quite the jam-packed demo for you all today. Before I share my screen here, I'll just run you through roughly what we'll be doing. We'll be going through a couple of different ways you can create social copy, like actual words on our site. We'll be going through how you can download your voter file and then manipulate it so that it formats perfectly for Meta's guidelines for uploading audiences. We'll then be going through how to log your social engagement. And finally, a little bit about how to use our website builder and what you can do to push people to your website. Okay. So first one will be how to not have to look at a blank page and create a social post from scratch. Because if you're like me, that is incredibly difficult. It's a little bit easier if you've got something going on that you can react to and edit. So I'm here on our voter outreach page, and let's go create a social post. We'll develop our script, and then the next step, sort of self-evidently, is posting it to social media. So if you've got a saved script from elsewhere, maybe our content builder, you can use that. If you've got a script, if you're talented at writing from scratch, go for it. But here I'm going to generate a new script. And let's say that this one takes my top issues. It'll take a little bit here. What we're doing on the back end here is pulling in all of your profile information and the purpose for this particular post. And then using all of that, prompting an AI model that we have on the back end here, and then creating your actual post. Obviously, I mean, we've all used these AI tools. They come in differing speeds, and they can take a little bit. So I'm going to pop over here to another chat that I've got using our AI assistant. Now, where our voter outreach and content builder are helpful for creating single pieces of content, our AI assistant takes in a lot of that same information about you that you've given us, about your campaign, about your race and your demographics in your voter file. And it can help you do things like brainstorming different ideas for social posts and really get the creative juices flowing that way. So yeah, you can create single pieces of content. You can create multiple pieces of content and brainstorm. I think really the big selling point here for you is that you don't have to go into ChatGPT or Claude and then put in all of the information about you, about your race, about everything. We save you quite a bit of typing there by making sure that this is all built into our AI models and works well for you from the get-go. Okay. The next piece here is going to be how to get your voter data into Facebook. So this is a bit more of an involved process, and I've already taken some notes on how I personally want to improve it, having gone through it a couple of times now. But the best way that I can describe it to you is, first, you have to be on our Pro plan. $10 a month gets you all of the voter data you need from a national vendor we use called L2 that provides really high quality data. They clean their data and they enrich it really well. So you're going to go and download just your stock voter file with all of the fields. And that is going to look something like this. Provides quite a lot of information. Most of which you're not going to need to target people on Facebook. You're also going to go to, let me pull this tab over here. This isn't to scare you. This is just Meta's official documentation on how you need to be formatting these things. They accept a variety of different pieces that are included in the voter file, things like phone number, first name, last name. They also, you can input lots of optional data like city, state, zip. So what I've done here is I've taken this, and I'll see about sharing the link to this particular format. I won't include this actual voter data just because giving voter data away for free is a bad thing for the FEC. But I'll share at least this link here and an example file with Rob, and we'll get that posted to Circle. But essentially, first name, last name, gender, age, phone number, county, state, and zip were the pieces I pulled out of here. Facebook is very fussy about their headers, which is why I'll provide both a link to the actual documentation that they have and to an example folder for you. But essentially, all I did here was I took my full voter file. I pulled first name to the front. I pulled last name to the front. I said, we don't need voter ID or registered party. And so I went ahead and deleted those, but I'll just hide those for now. Kept gender, kept age, and went like that through the voter file. Pretty easy one to make sure we get all of the possible data that we want. And ended up with this formatted list. It is a lot easier than trying to do this manually. I'm in a pretty small district here that only has something like, I want to say 3,000 names or so. So this took me, I want to say 10, 15 minutes. But in order to do that at scale for 3,000 people, I felt pretty good about it. And then, yeah, this is what you'll end up using to get everything you need for your Facebook. Okay.
Excellent.
Couple more things here. Rob, do I have time or am I going over?
Yeah, please.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, this was quite an interesting one to prep for because we've got a lot that can help here and a lot of new stuff. Another thing you'll want to make sure that you're doing as you're posting on social, as you're boosting those posts, as you're putting out your different ads, is making sure that you actually log those voter contacts. This is incredibly important because it helps guide you on how much work you have left to do in your campaign. If you were, like my demo account here, 10 weeks to election day and you've already made a lot of voter contacts, you know that you don't have to do quite as much spend to meet your actual voter contact goals. Or you could then opt to go crazy, hit as many voters as you can and increase your chances to win. So this is a good guidepost for how much work you have left to do in your campaign. And I could come in here and say that over the course of the week, maybe I got 200 more social views, boom, records it. I now know that I've got roughly 600 voter contacts I need to make to hit my goals for my campaign. And now we get to probably the most fun part for me. This is something we've released recently that's seen a lot of good use. I'm very happy that we did it. And that is a website. So I've gone ahead and I've created one. I'll show you in a bit what the information looks like, but just know that this took me less than 10 minutes, including writing the copy here. And it should take you about the same. So I haven't included photos in here. You can definitely include photos right here, but it felt a little bit weird to be making a mock website for myself and including my photo and everything on it. But you definitely should. And really, we ask for a few different pieces of information. A title, a tagline, your bio that you've likely already put into our site and your profile, and then your key issues. And from that, you get a single page website that looks cleaner than a lot of candidate websites you will see for people who don't use something like this. We've specifically taken the time to streamline the whole thing so that it looks nice and neat and professional for you, because that is, as somebody who's been doing design on the web for the last, oh no, I'm aging myself, decade plus, it is difficult to actually get that kind of crispness of message so that when somebody comes in, they know exactly what you want them to do. They know what you're about. They can look at you and they can understand your platform all within a couple of minutes. They can also send you some messages here. So we do give you the ability here to receive messages from your community, especially as you're pushing people to here from your social posts. And then This is available to everybody. It's free if you want a website that's like candidates.goodparty.org/this is me for auditor. But we do also give you the ability then, if you want to kind of level up your campaign website, to purchase a domain. I could purchase tevinbellforauditor.com or whatever thing I could come up with. And we also let you track your visitors. So as you're getting your traffic here from social posts, you'll see this number go up. You'll see if you posted on Sunday and you got a lot of people on Sunday, you posted on Monday, you didn't get so many people. You'll be able to see roughly what your trends are for traffic. And then I said I'd show you this piece, but here's all of the information we require for your website. It is slimmed down on purpose so that you can get something up and running incredibly quickly that's incredibly focused. If you have a logo, or if you want to spend 5 minutes and make one on the internet, there are plenty of logo generators now. We've seen an explosion of those in the last couple of years. So you can get your campaign logo up. We let you choose from a couple of preset themes. Your title, your tagline. If you want a main image, could be something like you out in your community, you and your family, you and your friends, maybe a picture of your community. I highly recommend that. Your campaign details, this is where the meat of it happens, your bio and your issues, and then your contact details. For a lot of compliance, specifically texting compliance, it requires that your information is here. We don't really request anything more than would be on your election filing anyway. But giving people a way to reach out to you in your community is incredibly important. And I won't go into it now because it's not particularly the subject of this webinar, but if you are planning to send out texts, this is crucial. Okay. And Rob, I think after maybe one of the longest demos ever, I think I'm done. Everyone, you should now know a little bit about how to create your social copy, using our tools, using our AI, some of the special prompts we have behind the scenes to make sure that you're hitting best practices. You should know how to download your voter data, format it for Facebook. I'll include some of those links here in the chat once I drop off. And then you'll know how to log your social engagement. And then, yeah, a little bit about setting up your website and pushing people to it, seeing that number go up and your visitors increase, and hopefully reaching out to some people, getting some voter contacts, and winning your campaign.
Great. Well, thank you, Tevin.
Not a problem.
I want to get us back into bunch more Q&A. I'm going to ask our producers to drop the survey about this training. We love getting feedback on how valuable these trainings are from folks, so they're going to drop that. But while that's popping up on the screen, I did want to invite Jared to talk a little bit about just some general best practices. So both for creative, but also for targeting. What are some of the best practices that people should keep in mind? And then we'll get into a big push of Q&A.
Yeah, before we do, I think I'm still seeing a screen here.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
Kevin,
you.
if you can go ahead and
Thank you. There we go.
Oh, as much as I love looking at spreadsheets.
Yeah, it's the best part of your day.
So the thing that has come up a few times is this acronym CTA, and that stands for call to action. And I think calls to action are maybe not something that is the most intuitive or fluent in how people generally speak to each other, but it is an incredibly important thing to include on anything and everything that's taking place online. And so a call to action is, in the easiest way to explain it, what should the person who sees your ad be doing with the advertisement or doing in response to seeing your advertisement? And that can be a variety of things. A lot of these platforms even make suggestions or help you optimize based on the goals that you're setting at your campaign. But it should be something along the lines of like this post, visit this website, sign up for this email list, anything that inspires action. and it should be tailored to the goal of your campaign and be featured in your copy and even in your graphics. So for example, if you are trying to build engagement and raise awareness for your campaign, the CTA might be something like spread the word or like this post. And then spread the word is in the graphic that you might create. It might be in the copy, tell everyone you know I'm running and please share this page to 10 other people. And the ad itself will have a button that encourages people to click it and then share the post or share the page. So CTAs, you can't be overly aggressive enough in telling people and making clear what the person who is seeing your ad should be doing. Campaigns should also be, I should say, advertising campaigns should be built upon each other in a way that you would tell a story. So if you come out in the very first ad with your election, certainly far off into the future, is vote for me, I'm the best candidate you've ever heard of, you might get some very reasonable questions like, who are you? Is there an election happening? Why are you the best person in this race? Who else is running? I've seen people respond, don't tell me who to vote for. So we encourage as a best practice to tell a story using ads as a means to amplify your own story. Start with the basics. Why are you running? What are you running for? What is it that you want to do? Why are you the best choice? And ultimately, what do you want the person to do in response to seeing the story being told? And it should be get on board and eventually get out and vote. I think if you do that and you can introduce contrast, you can set the stage and you can bring people with you across the entire journey and engage with people across throughout the entire experience. And this is especially why social media advertising tends to be the thing that people lean most into. You'll find that you're building a following as you go, and you're basically riding this wave straight to the polls. One other thing to note is that advertising is going to, when done effectively, bring people into your tent. And it's important that they're having a good experience, even if they're not directly being advertised to every second of every day. So if you've ever heard the expression organic social or just organic engagement, that comes with candidates doing more to their pages than just pressing boost or advertise. It's frequently posting pictures, updates, telling people where you are, dropping links to the things that you might want them to attend to that you might not be advertising, responding to comments, responding to messages, sharing the work of others, highlighting other people. All of that is going to, build a community that people want to be a part of. And this community happens to be your campaign. The last thing I would say, you've heard it at the top of the call, it's about measuring things. What is the purpose of your ad? Making sure you understand exactly what you're trying to get out of it. Follow the progress as you're running things, and then iterate and try different objectives, different copy, different scripts if you feel like you're not getting as much traction as you should. And that starts with measuring and knowing what success looks like, having a clear and defined CTA of where you want people to go and or what you want them to do, and then staying on top of it and making changes and calling audibles if you have to. If you do all of that, I think you're going to find that no matter how much money you put into the thing, you're going to see that your results compound, you're going to have success. And ultimately, you're going to use this tool as a means of letting people know who you are, why you're doing this, and what you need from them in order to have success.
Awesome. Jared, I've got a question that I really here. It's coming from Babatunde in Maryland. Babatunde asks, how early should a candidate start running digital ads? What is the timing for this? And I think that this is a timely question, given that we're kind of fastly approaching the Labor Day period that usually is like the kickoff of awareness for campaigns. But for you, what is the earliest that a candidate should run a digital ad if they're looking at a November election?
I've seen, again, this is one of those things that there's not always a one size fits all approach. The size of your audience, the budget that you have across the whole campaign really matters. We didn't necessarily talk too much about targeting. I saw that there was a question around targeting, and I'd like to.
We're going to get into a whole run of targeting questions.
All right, then I'll save it. I'll save it to the end. I've seen some candidates in large campaigns start their advertising very, very early, like 2 years, 3 years ahead of when they knew they were going to run, even preceding them saying, I am a candidate for this office. And the reason that's a little bit, you have to be a super prepared, ready to go person. But this is also true. Maybe you've run before and you're thinking about running again. maybe you're running for re-election. There are a lot of applications for getting started really early. And the thing that's nice about, advertising well in advance is you can build and start to lay the the foundation of your story, and encourage people to get on board before the ship really leaves the station. It allows you to build an audience. It allows you to start engaging with people in a way that doesn't have the spotlight of political campaign, go vote, right underneath you, and gives you an opportunity to really organically build a following with just a little bit of advertising sprinkled around. That's not always the case. I think for folks who've got elections in November, gearing up, the summer is typically where we start to see advertising really kick off. And again, it's because you're trying to tell the story that sometimes takes some time to tell a really nice linear story. Why are you running? People are starting to tune into the elections over the course of the summer. Maybe if you had a primary election that's just passed, people are thinking, who's their choice in the November election? Who should I be voting for? Maybe they need a reminder that there even is an election. So getting started now, and then once you get into the post-Labor Day sprint, that's really where people start to ramp up their calls to action that are less around learn more and spread the news that I'm running, down to, sign up, get involved, attend an event, and eventually go vote. And that's the big thing when we talk about CTAs. You'll see the evolution. It goes from a little bit of more passive, like spread the word and learn, to a little bit more proactive, like do this, come to this event, go vote, make a plan to vote, all of those things.
Mhm. While we're on the topic of CTAs, we had a question from Circle about, can you give an example of a CTA that is really effective for small campaigns? What are some of the best CTAs that you've seen there? I know you gave a couple of hypothetical ones, but are there any tactical CTAs that you like to recommend?
I tend to love Learn More as a CTA and drive people to your website.
Mhm.
And the reason I really like that CTA is because, one, it doesn't sound as political as some of the other CTAs are. I think people very reasonably sort of cringe when the ad is, sign up or donate even. Learn More is a little bit more of a, hey, I'm trying to help you better understand what's going on in our community. And it directs people to your website, which is a good thing. It helps you measure your success, not just on your advertising platform, but also on your back end on your website. It helps you collect people's emails and other information that you might want. It might direct people to your forms that you might have on your website if you're trying to sign people up for things. So I generally find Learn More is a really effective one for campaigns.
Excellent. Excellent. So I want to start talking a little bit more about targeting. We have a great question from Dennis about what are the most effective audiences to target, by age, socioeconomic segments, interests. And from Tevin's demo, you could see our voter data has a lot of that information. And there are a lot of different ways that you can target on social media. Before I kind of throw this question to Jared, this is a good chance again. I'm just going to plug that we have this new digital course that goes into quite a lot of depth on this exact question. So we talk pricing, we talk getting verified, but in the targeting and audience section, we talk about the different audience types that are available to you, whether that's custom audiences, lookalike audiences, saved audiences, and how to build each of these. So if you are interested in really getting a deep dive into the capabilities that are available, this course is where I would recommend going. But with that in mind, Jared, maybe you could even start by giving us kind of the broad overview from your perspective of what audience refinements you might recommend to people who are running these ads, and maybe even defining the custom audience, lookalike, and saved audience piece.
Perfect. So yeah, there are three really frequently used approaches to reaching folks on Facebook or on Meta. The first is using Facebook's native advertising, which has undergone quite a bit of evolution over the past few years. But basically, you are taking their data and you're targeting using their parameters. And that might be casting a net around your geography. You can also look at certain behaviors that are not necessarily political to try and whittle down your list. But the idea is you're reaching people who are already active on Facebook because you're using Facebook's primary data to reach them. You can also build lookalike audiences, which are audiences of people who exhibit similar behaviors, whether you're using a custom list or you're trying to target people who are similar to the people who already like you or who are already engaging with your posts to broaden out your reach. So let's say Rob and I are very similar profiled people based on the Facebook sort of algorithm. And don't be fooled, I'm much taller. But let's say in a world we were the same height and had similar personalities. And Rob was already engaged, you might effectively target me using a lookalike audience because we profile similarly. Again, if there's anything to take away from this presentation, it's important to know that I'm taller than Rob Booth. The last thing are the custom audiences that Tevin demoed, which is where you take data that is not Facebook's and upload it into Facebook's social graph. And what is very powerful about that is you're making very determined assumptions on who it is that you're trying to reach and why. You might say, I want to reach likely voters who are between the ages of 18 and 30 years old. And you can upload that information into Facebook. And what then the tool will then do on their end is look for people who have Facebook profiles that they can be advertised to. And that's really effective. You're sort of pulling the needles out of the haystack and saying, I only want to target these folks. Facebook will say, okay, I'm going to try and find those people who have social media profiles and reach those specific folks that you've asked me to reach. The challenge with the latter, which I tend to really recommend and enjoy, is that folks tend to get really granular. So let's say you're in a community of 1,000 people and you're saying, I want to reach, of those 1,000 people, the likely voters who are between the ages of 18 to 35 years old. That might get you a list of 300 people, right? And then what happens is you have to then successfully find those needles in the haystack. And if it's a really, really small haystack and there's only a few needles in there, there's only so many profiles that Meta is going to be able to capture for you. And then what might happen is your costs are going to go up. And so I saw a question around CPMs and email acquisitions and metrics that help you determine how effective your ads are being. Well, generally, if you're trying to reach 10,000 people and you're trying to show your ads to 10,000 people, it's going to be much more affordable or much more effective to reach those people at cost than if you're trying to pull, match 350 Facebook profiles with not the most complete data. Your costs might be really, really high because it's really only being shown to like 20 people total. So there are pros and cons to each. I generally recommend a diversity and a blend of all of them. But especially if you're using the custom option, using our data to do it, it's really, really important you don't get too deep into the weeds because you might end up only targeting a really, really small micro audience of people.
Yeah. We did have a question about some budget guidelines. And again, I'll share sort of a preview in the course. We have a whole section on that budget and pricing and some good numbers to sort of remember as a basic rule. The minimum for Facebook advertising is $3 a day. And we tend to recommend that people start out with a budget of about $500. And the cost per impression usually works out to be about a penny per impression meaning someone actually seeing the ad that you're putting together for them. So again, if you're looking into a deeper dive on all things budgeting, that course that we dropped a link to in the chat is available. And I hope folks get lots of good use from that. Another question here, Jared, this is, I think, a pretty softball question for you. Can digital ads be used for Board of Education races? This comes from Faisal in New Jersey.
They sure can. You can use digital so long as you can get your pages set up and follow all the steps. You can use them for Congress, for president, for school board in a small town, for anything.
Yeah, I can't drive this point home enough. If you are in a municipal race, you're running for city council, you're running for school board, you're running for mayor in your town, the most effective things that you can do are, number one, knock every door in your district. That's something you have in your control to do, and you can do just with shoe leather. If you could do two things, it'd be knock every door in your district and run more Facebook ads than the other guy. That would be a big part of my recipe for winning your campaign. And then I would layer in a robust get out the vote campaign after that. So those to me are some of the ways that you can run and win a modern campaign. And I think running digital ads is just as essential as knocking doors in a lot of ways. So that's a part of why we're doing this training, a part of why we put the course out there, and a part of why we want to demystify the process. And again, a lot of campaigns can run for $500 to $1,000 a winning ad strategy, especially in smaller districts. Another targeting question, Jared, what are some of the ages that you tend to target on Facebook advertising? I ask this because I know that younger people are digital savvy, but Facebook tends to skew a little bit older, and that comes from Albert in Utah.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree, but again, you can advertise through Instagram as well, which I've been told being absent the platform does tend to skew younger. And I think really at the end of the day, we stress it all the time. Like there's not a one, these are tactics, they're really important tactics to understand how to sort of baseline use. And then like anything else in campaigning, who you target is based on assumptions that you're making that are specific to your campaign. And so get informed, dive into the data, look for how many people represent each different demographic that you're trying to target. It's easy to say everyone should target older people because older people are on Facebook. But if you're in a community where, 10% of the registered voter population is over the age, let's say, of 70, or more likely than not, 10% in this instance of the likely voters are over a certain age, you can target them as much as you'd like, and you might be really, really effective in reaching those voters. But the outcome is not aligned with a winning campaign strategy. Because if 100% of those 10% of people are so inspired by your meta ad that they choose to go out and vote, you're still leaving a whole lot of extra voters that you need off on the table. And so my suggestion to anyone who's using digital, just like they would any other tactic or any other decisions that they're making using data, is to connect it to your overall campaign strategy. What do I need to do and who do I need to reach in order to win this election? And how effective can I be across all of these different channels to reach them in a way that is going to be most efficient, most cost effective, and put me in the best position to be able to do it more and stretch as much time and money that I have available to me as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm. A couple of questions from Shauna Davis. She asks a good question about compliance. She said that she's having some issues figuring out how to enter who paid for the ad. And she knows that she's required to indicate that. What type of disclosures are typically required, and how do you make sure that you're able to include that in the ad itself?
So you can include a disclaimer. In fact, you have to. When your page is created, you'll submit a disclaimer that is connected to the organization that is behind the ad, and it's generally the campaign itself. And so, excuse me, when you go into Meta, you have an option as you go through the verification process to produce and then have your disclaimer verified. And it might be paid for Shayna for city council if that's the name of your campaign committee, or paid for by friends of John Johnson. But that disclaimer has to match and is checked by Facebook against whatever documents were filed when the campaign was created. And in some instances, it's very straightforward because you filed paperwork with your local government. You submit that paperwork, Facebook has a means of checking it, and then you're good to go. In other instances, especially at the really, really local levels, you just have to go through what's the organizational step where you submit a website and an email that matches that website. And you should be all good, and you can create your disclaimer that way.
Great. So this next question, is it better to use my limited resources for digital ads or direct mail oversized postcards? I'm hearing digital ads, but I don't have social media, or some don't have social media, is what it says. And this is a sort of complex one, and I'm looking forward to hearing Jared's answer on this. I'll give my take on it initially by saying mail can be more effective in terms of an overall impact than digital, with the individual effect of the mail piece. But it's so much more expensive. And your reach with mail is actually so much more limited because of the fixed costs associated with mail. Like postcards cost what they cost. postage stamps cost what they cost. It's harder to run a mail program at scale that reaches as many people. Digital ads are less durable, less sticky. They have less persuasion power. But you can do so many more of them for so much cheaper that it tends to net out. And my answer to this would be I think digital is more effective for most candidates than mail. And mail works best when it is used for a targeted constituency, where you're delivering a very specific message to a very specific segment of voters that you want to get on your side. Whereas a digital ad, yes, you can use it that way, but you can use it in a more broadcast method generally. So my answer is digital, but I'm interested in Jared's take on this.
My take is, in a perfect world, you could do both.
Mhm.
And I think given the choice between the two, I would often lead to digital as well. And the reason is because mail is very much like you're swinging for the home run, pitch.
Yeah.
You have one opportunity, assuming you're only doing one piece of direct mail, that means you get one shot to reach your voters. And if you time it incorrectly, or if the mail piece for whatever reason isn't effective, you've taken a significant portion of your budget, and in one shot you've used it probably to the brim. With digital, you have the opportunity not only to iterate and to test, but also to expand the time that you're reaching your voters, hit them repetitively over and over and over again over a fixed period of time. And Rob, you touched on it perfectly. The idea of fixed cost is, I think, not just from a sense of, hey, here's what goes into the piece of mail, but also with digital, you can increase or decrease your budget based on any other things that are going on in the campaign. And so when I structure a political campaign, what I tend to do is I create a budget and I'll say, this is what I'm going to spend on mail. This is what I'm going to spend on door knocking, let's say. This is what I'm going to spend on text messaging and calls. This is what I'm going to spend on digital. And I try and adhere to that budget to the best of my ability, knowing that at any point in the journey, there could be expenses that are unforeseen that come together, right? And then once I can allocate my budget, there is either decisions that need to be made that you can go up or down, or decisions to totally wipe something out of the field. Digital is always this tactic where it can be impacted with all of the leftovers, or you can even take some out if you have to, because it's very easy. If your ad is running, you just add budget to it. If your ad is running and you need to stop it early, you can save money by stopping the ad early. With
And
mail,
if people are responding to your CTA, you increase, right? You can invest in that even deeper because there's something that's resonant in that ad.
I had a campaign a couple of years ago prior to working with goodparty.org where I was doing a race in Virginia. And we had a budget, I think a total budget, it was like $10,000, I think, roughly, right? So not a large campaign, also not a small campaign, but certainly not like a $50,000, $60,000 campaign. And in the home stretch, this is spending. And our feeling was we were going to go up on digital and spend, let's say, $2,000 over the course of the month. And we were going to reserve the remaining $8,000 to 3 pieces of direct mail so that we would be able to hit voters once a week over the last 3 weeks of the election. And we were so blown away by the feedback that we were getting on digital, and the costs were so cheap. We actually killed the first mailer and pushed it into digital. And then we killed the second mailer and pushed it into digital. And by the end of the campaign, our costs weren't going up. And we're like, there's no point in doing mail because we're reaching people online.
Yeah.
So that was a decision we were able to make because the ability to set and adapt your budget on digital is just such an attractive opportunity. Whereas with mail, as soon as you commit to doing the piece, you're spending the money. So I think given the choice between one or the other, I would start with mail always, or sorry, start with digital always, understanding that you are more in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So a question that we had dropped in the advance of this was, should I target broadly or narrow? And how do I know when to do which of the two? And I think, like with campaigning, you would love to reach every voter, right? And really what drives this, as Jared had mentioned, is the question of budget. if you could afford to, you'd want to reach every single voter with, especially likely voters, with your best message about why they should vote for you. And the question of who to narrow to and when to narrow is almost always driven by budget and who you have the means to make. So you're kind of placing bets that, okay, if I only have $500 to do advertisements, the $500 worth of impressions that I'm getting are best affected to be likely voters who are young people who are close to the city center. Those are the types of questions that you might use or assumptions that you use to narrow. But Jared, let's kind of throw this to you. You're starting as broad as possible. What are some of the go-to first cuts that you make when you're looking at a race, with deference to the idea that all races are slightly different? What are some of the early assumptions that you use when you begin narrowing down?
Yeah. So you mean if I'm uploading a custom file?
Yeah.
Yeah, typically it's voter behavior first and foremost. I'm looking to start broad for sure, but then especially as you get closer to the election, and again, this is true regardless of the tactic, but especially on something where you can manage your budget in real time. I would say that as you're getting closer, you're trying to activate people and convert them into being likely voters. Or if the people who aren't converting and they're just not going to vote no matter what you do, you can stop advertising to them because you're essentially reaching folks who are immovable. And that tends to happen. You might make assumptions that at a certain point, there are political demographics that you are not inclined to target as effectively because you think that the feedback you're receiving suggests that a certain demographic of people, let's say you skew more progressively, you might start to winnow out some of the more conservative voters in your district, especially closer to the election, based on feedback you've received. And you will receive feedback in real time through your ads too. If you're someone who has a reputation for being progressive and you show your ad to a conservative voter, you may not get the most, the most encouraging feedback, and that's okay. But eventually you can winnow that group of voters out. And then you might get more targeted to things like age, specific geographies. Sometimes drawing a net around very tight geographies in your district is an effective strategy if there are certain regions of your community that you're trying to turn out the vote. Those are a couple of examples of ways to narrow the net a little bit.
Great. And then one final question and last call for questions in the Zoom chat. I had a question asked that essentially said, if I only had a couple $100 to spend, how should I prioritize between boosting posts and placing proper ads?
It's a really good question. I think that it's not just about money in this instance, it's about time. If you have the constant thing that we run into is someone will come into our orbit and say, I'm on digital, and I had an extra $50 I wasn't expecting, and the election is tomorrow. What should I do? And you could spend that time to come up with a compelling ad and go through all the motions to target people effectively and to place ads across a series of different channels on Meta's advertising platform, and potentially be really effective in doing it. Or you might just put up a post saying, hey, the election is tomorrow, get out and vote, and hit boost and spend all $50 on that. I think that if you are someone who is very literate and very prepared and have plenty of time to really go through these trainings and get set up for the ads, you'll find that in the last couple of weeks of your campaign, it's not necessarily about creating new content or new advertisements and running them, but about adjusting the budgets. I tend to operate that way too, where I'll say I'm going to get all of my ads scheduled to go out in the last like 10 or so days of the campaign. And then if I find myself with a couple of extra bucks, I can just add to the budget versus having to create something entirely new. And if I'm in a pinch, I think the boost option tends to be the most seamless and effective one. You don't have to go through any sort of ad verification steps where you have to have your ad submitted for approval. You can just get a post up, throw it out, and hopefully it's a simple and easy call to action, which is get out to the polls and make a plan to vote.
Excellent. Well, on that note, I believe we've answered all the questions that folks had. I want to thank our expert, Jared, for being generous with his time, and thank Tevin for walking us through some of the product uses. This is another opportunity for me to tell people join the Circle community, where we pull so many of the questions that we build these trainings off of. You can also try the new free course that we have there on digital ads. It's kind of like this course or training that we just did, but a much more in-depth deep dive into the how-tos. We do screen shares of literally walking you through how to become Facebook and Meta verified. We have budget outlines, all sorts of different pieces. And yeah, so I want to thank everyone for being on the call. There's a link in the chat currently for that Circle course. That's also a link that will let you join Circle if you're not already a member there. But thank you all. We will see you in 2 weeks, where you can join our training call on debate prep. I'll ask our producers to drop the RSVP page for that in the chat as well. But we will have a great training on how to prep for debate and just open discourse in general. But best of to everyone here. Good luck. I know a lot of folks are entering the final scripts. There's a wave of August elections that are happening, and then really those of you, the majority of folks who have those November elections this year, it's really campaign time. It's really heating up to be the most active period. So we will be seeing all of you again soon, I hope. 2 weeks for the debate training and in Circle, where every single day you can find us. So be well, everyone, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.